The stars above the alien empire shone like shards of glass scattered across the black void. The alien queen's palace glittered under their reflection, its towers stretching higher than clouds, its walls carved with the stories of victories, power, and generations of rulers. Inside, the halls echoed with soft footsteps, yet one chamber held a tension that seemed almost alive. The alien princess, her hair the color of twilight and eyes bright with intelligence, was pacing, waiting for the command that would send her far from home. "You will leave at dawn," the queen said, her voice low but sharp like the edge of a blade. She sat upon her throne, her form regal, her gaze unyielding. "The planet at the edge of our sector holds information that could strengthen our empire. You are to retrieve it and return without failure." "The mission must succeed." The princess stopped pacing. She had been trained all her life to obey, to master the arts of survival, diplomacy, and combat. Yet, beneath the calm of her training, her heart raced. "Mother," she said, "this planet is dangerous. Reports say the atmosphere is unstable and the wildlife—" "The risks are known," the queen interrupted, her eyes narrowing. "Your skill is unmatched. Failure is not an option. Do not return until you succeed." The princess bowed her head, a gesture of respect and duty. Though she agreed, a small spark of unease flared within her. She had faced challenges before, yet this mission was different. The edge of the sector was largely unexplored, and no one in the empire had ever returned with complete knowledge. There were dangers that even the most advanced technology could not predict. Before dawn, the princess's ship, sleek and silver, hovered silently in the palace courtyard. She walked along its surface, checking the panels, sensors, and thrusters with precision. Each movement was careful, deliberate, and rehearsed. Yet her mind wandered to the stories she had heard about the humans, primitive beings from a distant planet, weak and fragile, yet somehow surviving in conditions her people would consider uninhabitable. She dismissed it. Humans were a curiosity, a minor species not worth her attention. And yet, the thought lingered. The ship's engines hummed, a gentle vibration that seemed to vibrate through her chest. She stepped inside, the doors sealing behind her. The cockpit was bright and organized, with holographic displays projecting data about the journey. The planet waited, dark and unpredictable, at the far edge of known space. With a deep breath, she engaged the engines, and the ship rose, gliding through the sky like a silver arrow. Hours passed in silence, the only sound the quiet hum of the ship's systems. Stars moved past in streaks as the ship accelerated faster than any human technology could achieve. The princess studied the planetary data, noting the hazards and anomalies, preparing her mind for the challenges ahead. She had survived worse than this, or so she told herself. The trouble began suddenly. A storm, unlike anything she had seen, formed around the planet, twisting winds and energy fields colliding in chaotic patterns. The ship's instruments went wild. Red warnings flashed across every screen, and the hull shook violently. "Stabilizers failing," she muttered, her hands moving swiftly across the controls, adjusting thrusters, diverting power. But the storm was relentless. Lightning danced across the sky, strange pulses of energy striking the ship from all directions. Despite her skill, the ship was pulled down, forced toward the planet's surface. With a violent jolt, it crashed into a clearing, trees and rocks shattering beneath it. Alarms screamed, and smoke filled the cockpit. The princess struggled to breathe, the force of impact pressing against her chest. Slowly, she forced herself upright, checking the ship for damage. The hull was cracked, one engine offline, and communications dead. She had survived the crash, but she was stranded, alone, and far from anyone who could help. She exited the ship cautiously, scanning the landscape. The planet was harsh, with jagged rocks, twisted trees, and a strange mist that hung low over the ground. Shadows moved in the distance, but she could not tell whether they were natural creatures or something more dangerous. She activated her survival suit, its systems giving her protection from the atmosphere, and began to walk, hoping to find a safer location. Hours passed, and night fell. Strange sounds echoed through the trees, low growls, rustling movements, whispers that seemed almost alive. She remained alert, every sense heightened, ready to respond. She had trained for combat, for evasion, for survival. But this planet felt different. Wild, unpredictable. Even her instincts whispered caution. Then she saw him. A human, small and wiry, crouched behind a rock, watching her. She froze, unsure what to make of him. Humans were supposed to be primitive, weak, afraid. Yet this one did not flee. Instead, he studied her, his eyes sharp, calculating, and fearless. He did not seem to be armed with advanced technology, but he moved with confidence, as though he understood the dangers better than she did. "Who are you?" she demanded, her voice steady despite the uncertainty. "Show yourself." The human emerged, slowly, hands raised, showing no weapon. "I'm not here to hurt you," he said, in careful tones. His language was simple but understandable, and somehow she recognized his intent. "You need help." She studied him, skeptical, but before she could respond, a shadow moved. A massive creature, one of the planet's predators, charging from the trees with teeth bared. She instinctively reached for her weapon, but the human moved faster. He grabbed a makeshift trap, hurling it toward the creature. It snapped shut, entangling the beast and buying her a precious moment. The princess's eyes widened. He was clever, resourceful, and unafraid. How did you do that?" she asked, her tone a mix of disbelief and admiration. "Experience," he said simply. "I know this land." "I know its dangers. Come with me."
"You can't survive alone?" She hesitated, pride battling with survival instinct.
She had been trained to survive alone, to rely only on herself. Yet, the situation was clear. Without his help, she would not make it through the night. Slowly, she followed, keeping her distance, but trusting his guidance. The human led her through the misty forest, pointing out hazards, avoiding dangerous plants and unstable ground. They moved silently, communicating through gestures and short words, learning to anticipate each other's actions. Despite her initial doubt, the princess began to appreciate his skill. He was not strong like an elite soldier, but his mind was sharp, and his instincts were flawless. He saw danger before it struck, and he planned several steps ahead. As they moved, they shared small stories of their worlds. The princess spoke of the alien empire, of her mother's strict rule, of the expectations that weighed on her. The human spoke of his colony, of survival against harsh conditions, of building shelters and growing food where no one thought it possible. They learned from each other, understanding that courage came in many forms. Night deepened, and the air grew colder. The princess shivered in her suit, and the human noticed. He found a sheltered area, protected by overhanging rocks, and helped her make a small fire using techniques she had never imagined. The warmth was comforting. But more than that, it was a symbol of their growing trust. They were strangers from worlds apart, yet they had come together in a way neither expected. Suddenly, a loud roar echoed through the trees, shaking the ground. The predator had returned, breaking free from the trap. Its eyes glowed in the dark, hungry and relentless. The princess froze, ready to fight. But the human acted without hesitation. He created a diversion, luring the creature away from their camp, using quick thinking and cunning traps made from the environment. The princess watched, amazed at his ingenuity. After the danger passed, she realized something she had never admitted before. She had underestimated humans. They were not weak. They were clever, adaptable, and brave in ways her people rarely considered. She began to see the world through new eyes, recognizing that strength came not just from training or technology, but from the mind, the heart, and the willingness to act under pressure. By morning, they had survived the night. The storm had passed, and the planet seemed calmer. though still wild and unpredictable. The princess looked at the human, gratitude and respect shining in her eyes. "You saved me," she said quietly. "I do not know how to repay you." The human shrugged, simple and honest. "No need for that. You're alive." "That's what matters. But you need to get back to your world before your people send search parties." "It's not safe here." The princess nodded. She realized that her journey was just beginning. She had survived the planet's dangers, learned from a human, and faced her own prejudices. The path back to her empire would not be easy, but she was no longer alone. Together, they could navigate the challenges ahead. As they walked toward a safer area where the princess could attempt to repair her ship, she began to speak, asking questions about his life, his knowledge, his skills. He answered with patience, guiding her and teaching her how to see the world differently. They worked together, building small tools, improving her suit systems, and preparing for the journey back. For the first time, the princess felt a mixture of fear and excitement. She had been sent on a mission, alone, expecting to rely solely on herself. Instead, she had found an unexpected ally. Someone whose bravery and intelligence matched her own in ways she had never imagined. She began to see that strength was not only in power, but in connection, trust, and cooperation. By the end of the day, the princess stood at the edge of a cliff, looking out at the strange landscape below. The human stood beside her, pointing out safe paths, hidden dangers, and opportunities. She felt a sense of hope, a spark she had not felt in a long time. The Empire's rules, her mother's expectations, and the harsh judgment of her world suddenly seemed less important than the knowledge she had gained. That courage, ingenuity, and kindness could exist even in the most unlikely places. The storm clouds had cleared, leaving the sky painted in colors she had never seen before. She breathed in the air, feeling a strange sense of freedom. She realized that she had survived not because of her royal training, but because she had learned to trust another being, to act with intelligence and courage, and to face danger with an open mind. As the sun rose, casting light over the jagged rocks and twisted trees, the princess knew that this was only the beginning. The planet still held dangers, the Empire still demanded success, and her mission was far from complete. But for the first time, she felt a confidence that was not born of pride or skill alone. She felt the strength of partnership, the power of ingenuity, and the quiet courage that comes from survival. The human looked at her and smiled, simple and reassuring. "Ready to move?" he asked. She nodded, a small smile touching her lips.
"Yes," she said. "Let's go." And together, they began the journey toward survival, toward understanding, and toward a future neither of them could have imagined.
The alien princess and the human had met by chance, yet in that meeting lay the spark of a story that would change everything. The alien princess followed the human through the forest, moving carefully over the jagged rocks and twisted roots that covered the ground. Though she had survived the crash in the first night, the planet remained unforgiving. Strange mist curled around the trees, hiding dangers that could strike without warning. She realized that no lesson from her empire had prepared her for this. She had always been trained to rely on skill, strength, and technology. But here, survival depended on cleverness and observation. The human moved with quiet confidence, leading her through paths she would never have found on her own. He pointed out signs of dangerous creatures, hidden pits, and unstable ground. He taught her how to listen to the wind, how to smell the change in the air, and how to recognize subtle movements that could signal a predator. She followed, hesitant at first, but slowly learning to trust his instincts. "You see that tree?" he asked one morning, stopping beside a gnarled oak. "The branches lean away from the wind for a reason. If we camp too close, we could be trapped in a storm again." She studied the tree and nodded. "I never noticed that." "In my world, we control everything. Nature is predictable. Here, it is not." "That's the thing," he said, smiling faintly. "Here, You have to respect it, not fight it. They moved in silence for hours, until they reached a small river that cut through the forest like a silver ribbon. The human knelt beside it, examining the water and the riverbed. Fresh water, he said. Safe to drink. But stay alert. Some creatures lurk near water, waiting for easy prey. The princess knelt beside him, watching. She had always assumed humans were weak and helpless, but now she saw the truth. They survived by thinking, by adapting, and by acting with precision. Strength was not always about power. It was about cleverness and timing. She felt a new kind of respect growing inside her, a mixture of awe and gratitude. As they filled their water supplies, a rustle from the trees made them both tense. A pack of small predators, no larger than a dog, but with claws sharp enough to tear through flesh, emerged. The princess instinctively reached for her weapon, but the human gestured to wait. He picked up several rocks and sticks, throwing them with precision to distract the creatures. When they lunged, he moved quickly, kicking and throwing, using the environment to his advantage. The princess watched in amazement as he controlled the situation without panic. She realized that in her empire, strategy often relied on technology and brute force. But here, the human used intelligence, observation, and timing. She stepped forward, helping him set traps, and together they drove the creatures back into the forest. "You are clever," she admitted once the danger passed. "I did not expect that from your species." He shrugged. "We have to be. If we aren't, we die." They continued along the river, following its course toward a higher plateau where the princess hoped to repair her ship. As they traveled, she learned more about the human. He had been born in the colony on this harsh planet, raised to survive where resources were scarce and danger was constant. He spoke of building shelters from materials most would consider useless, of creating tools from what little he had, and of teaching others in the colony to survive together. "You and your people," she said, amazed. "You live in a world I would call impossible." "We call it home," he replied simply. "We make the impossible work because we have no choice." She considered that, in her world, failure brought shame, not death. But here, failure could mean the end. She realized that humans had a kind of courage that was different from hers, a courage born of necessity, of constant challenge, and of resourcefulness. That night, they camped on the plateau, the stars above them, sharp and cold. The princess watched the human move with ease, setting up a small perimeter to keep dangerous creatures away. He worked silently, but she noticed the thoughtfulness in each action. Every placement of a rock, every branch leaned just so, showed a mind trained by survival, not by orders. "You think too much like a soldier," he said suddenly, as if reading her mind. "You're trained to react to threats, not to see them coming." "I was taught to rely on skill," she said. "But you—" She paused, realizing that he relied on observation, intelligence, and timing. "You survive because you think." He nodded. "Thinking keeps you alive here." Always thinking, always watching. They ate a simple meal of gathered fruits and roasted roots, sharing stories of their worlds. She told him about the alien empire, its grandeur and power, the strict rules that guided every action. He told her about the colony, the small community of humans who relied on each other, who shared knowledge, and who survived by adapting. As they spoke, she began to notice the subtle differences in their approach to life. Her people valued control and dominance, while humans valued adaptability and cooperation. Yet both sought survival, though in very different ways. She felt a sense of humility she had never experienced before. The next day brought new challenges. As they moved along a narrow canyon, the ground trembled beneath their feet. The river they had been following surged violently, and a landslide began to cascade down the cliffs. The princess froze, unsure what to do. The human grabbed her arm, pulling her toward a safer ledge. "Trust me," he said firmly. "We have to move fast." Together they ran along the edge, dodging falling rocks and debris. The princess marveled at his speed, not just physical, but mental. He anticipated each danger before it happened, choosing paths she would have avoided and taking risks that seemed impossible. They made it to safety, breathless and shaken, but alive. "You are fearless," she said, admiration and awe in her voice. I could not have survived that alone." "Fear is normal," he replied. "But you don't let it stop you. You act anyway. That's what counts." For the first time, the princess realized that humans had a different kind of courage, not the prideful courage her people valued, but a practical, resourceful courage that came from necessity and survival. She began to respect it, even admire it. As the days passed, their journey continued, filled with small victories and constant learning. The human taught her to navigate the planet using the stars, to find edible plants, to recognize the signs of dangerous weather. She, in turn, shared her knowledge of advanced technology, helping him understand the ship's systems and how to repair basic components. Together, they became a team, each complementing the other's strengths and weaknesses. One evening, as they rested near a natural spring, the princess spoke quietly. "I never thought I would trust a human," she said. "My people taught me they are weak, unreliable, and unworthy of respect."
"But you have proven me wrong." The human smiled, though tired. "We survive."
That's all anyone can do. It's not about strength. It's about thinking, acting, and not giving up. She nodded, feeling a sense of warmth she had not known before. She realized that her training, her skills, and even her royal status mattered less here than her ability to adapt, to learn, and to trust. The human had taught her something her empire never could. That survival was not just about power, but about intelligence, courage, and cooperation. Their journey was not without danger. One afternoon, they encountered a vast chasm blocking their path. The human examined it, searching for a way across. He spotted a series of narrow ledges and fallen trees that could serve as a bridge. The princess hesitated, fear rising in her chest.
"You can do this," he said, steady and calm. "I'll go first, then you."
"Move carefully, but don't hesitate." Step by step, they crossed the chasm, the princess marveling at his ingenuity and calm under pressure. Each step required precision, focus, and trust, not just in the path, but in each other. When they finally reached the other side, she felt a surge of gratitude and respect. He had saved her again, not with weapons or technology, but with intelligence, observation, and courage. As night fell, they camped on the far side of the chasm. The princess lay awake, staring at the stars. She thought of her empire, of the expectations of the queen, of the rules that had always guided her. And yet, here, she realized that true strength was different. True strength was surviving, learning, adapting, and trusting those who proved themselves worthy, not by birth or title, but by action. By the time the sun rose, they had reached a plateau overlooking the planet's surface. The princess's ship, though damaged, could be repaired enough to allow travel. But before they attempted the repairs, they needed shelter, food, and a safe path to avoid the planet's dangers. The human began marking safe routes, identifying natural shelters, and teaching the princess how to set traps and alarms. Together, they worked tirelessly, the bond between them growing stronger with each shared success. The princess realized that the human's courage was not born of desire for glory or recognition, but of necessity and care for others. He thought ahead, planned carefully, and acted decisively, qualities she had admired in soldiers, but never in humans. By the end of the second week, the princess felt a transformation within herself. She had survived nights of fear, faced creatures she had never imagined, and learned the ways of a human who thrived in a world her people would have considered hopeless. She felt respect, admiration, and a quiet trust that went beyond words. The human had become more than an ally. He had become a teacher, showing her the value of intelligence, courage, and adaptability. As they prepared to continue their journey toward the ship, the princess spoke quietly. "I owe you my life," she said. "I do not know how to repay you." The human shook his head. "No need. Surviving is enough. But when we reach your world, maybe you can teach them something about humans. Show them that we are more than they think." She smiled faintly, realizing he was right. The Empire had dismissed humanity as weak, but she had seen the truth. Humans were strong in ways her people could not understand. And she knew that when she returned, her perspective would change, not just her actions, but the way her people viewed others. The plateau stretched out before them, the path to the ship clear, but still dangerous. They began the final stretch, moving with care, alert to every sound, shadow, and movement. The princess realized that she had come far, not just in distance, but in understanding. She had faced fear, learned trust, and discovered courage in unexpected places. And as she walked beside the human, she knew that the next challenges would test them even more. The planet was still wild, unpredictable, and dangerous, but together they could face it, survive it, and perhaps find a way to change not just her life, but the way two worlds viewed each other. For the first time, the princess understood that survival was not just about strength, skill, or technology. It was about heart, mind, and trust. And she knew that with this human at her side, she had found an ally who could teach her more than any academy, any training, or any mission ever could. And so, they moved forward, toward the ship, toward safety, and toward the unknown future, ready to face whatever the planet and the universe might throw at them. The alien princess and the human stood at the edge of a wide plain, the remains of her ship glinting in the sunlight like broken silver. Though the crash had left it damaged, the hull was mostly intact, and the engines could be repaired if they worked together. She studied the wreck, her mind racing through the steps required to make it spaceworthy again. Even with her training and knowledge, it was a daunting task. But the human beside her seemed calm, examining the ship with a level of focus she had learned to trust. "We need to secure the hull first," he said, pointing to the cracked panels and bent metal. "If we don't, the engines won't start, and the ship could fail in midair." She nodded. "I can handle the power systems, but I'll need your help with structural support." Together they worked, improvising tools from the environment. The human fashioned levers and braces from rocks, metal scraps, and hardened branches. The princess guided him, explaining which parts were critical and which could be temporarily bypassed. Step by step they reinforced the hull, testing each section for strength. It was exhausting work, and the sun beat down on them relentlessly. But neither stopped. As they worked, the princess realized how much she had come to rely on the human, not just for physical help, but for guidance and insight. He had an instinct she could not teach, a way of seeing solutions in impossible situations. Watching him improvise, she felt both admiration and a quiet humility. She had always thought herself capable of handling any situation, but here, she was learning that survival was a shared effort, and that intelligence and courage came in many forms. By afternoon, the hull was stable enough to move on to the engines. The princess climbed into the main chamber, analyzing the damage. Wires had been torn, conduits damaged, and circuits fried. She worked quickly, using spare components she had salvaged from the wreck, while the human handed her tools, suggested solutions, and occasionally steadied panels with his strength. "This won't hold long if we push the engines too hard," he said, pointing to a worn joint. "We'll need to start slow, adjust, and monitor carefully." "I understand," she replied. "I'll manage the systems. You keep watch for structural weaknesses." Together, they worked late into the evening. The human's resourcefulness complemented her technical skill perfectly. When she found a missing conduit, he suggested a substitute made from a combination of metal and hardened plant fibers. When she needed extra pressure to secure a panel, he improvised a lever that allowed them to move the heavy piece with ease. By nightfall, the ship was ready for a cautious test. The princess climbed into the cockpit, her fingers dancing over the controls, while the human stood beside her, monitoring the hull for cracks or stress. She activated the engines slowly. Sparks flew, smoke hissed, and alarms rang briefly. But the ship held. Carefully, she increased the power, testing every system, while the human moved swiftly to adjust braces and supports. When the engines roared steadily, the princess let out a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. "It's working," she said, her voice a mix of relief and awe. The human smiled. "I told you we could do it." Despite the success, danger was never far away. As night fell, the planet's wildlife emerged. Strange creatures prowled the area, attracted by the movement and the hum of the ship's systems. The human and the princess took turns keeping watch, using clever traps and alarms to alert them of approaching predators. Each encounter tested their coordination, requiring quick thinking and trust in each other's actions. One night, a creature larger than any they had seen before approached, its massive frame moving silently over the plain. The human acted first, luring it away with decoys and quick maneuvers, while the princess used her knowledge of the ship's defenses to create barriers and distractions. Together, they managed to drive it off without harm. "I have never faced anything like this before," the princess said afterward, her voice calm but tinged with awe. "Your courage? Your thinking?"
It saved us again, he shrugged. You do the same for me. Survival isn't about fear. It's about action and planning.
In the following days, they focused on preparing for the journey back to the Empire. The princess taught the human basic principles of the ship's navigation systems, while he continued to teach her how to anticipate danger, read the terrain, and improvise solutions in moments of crisis. Their bond deepened, built on mutual respect and shared experience. One afternoon, they discovered evidence of a previous expedition, wreckage from an alien scouting team. The ships were destroyed, and the logs indicated that no one had survived. The princess studied the remains carefully, noting the mistakes that had been made. "They underestimated the planet," she said quietly. "They relied too much on technology, too little on observation. They did not think, adapt, or trust their instincts." The human nodded. "That's why we survive. We respect the land, its rules, and its dangers. We don't try to control it. We work with it." The lesson was not lost on the princess. She began to see her empire's methods in a new light, rigid, predictable, and vulnerable to unexpected challenges. Humans were not just survivors, they were innovators, thinkers, and strategists in ways her people could never imagine. As they prepared for the final stretch to the Empire, they faced a new challenge. A vast storm system forming over the planet, more powerful than any they had encountered. The winds could tear the ship apart, and the energy surges could fry its systems. The princess analyzed the storm, calculating the safest path, while the human suggested ways to reinforce the ship, use natural cover, and move in coordination to minimize risk. When the storm hit, it was violent and relentless. Trees bent and snapped, rocks tumbled across the plains, and lightning streaked across the sky. The princess piloted the ship with precision, following the path she had calculated, while the human reinforced the hull and monitored weak points. Every gust of wind, every flash of energy, tested their skills and their trust in each other. At one point, a lightning strike hit near the ship, sending a shockwave that rocked the hull. The human grabbed a brace, securing it just in time. "Hold on!" he shouted, steadying the ship and helping her maintain control. They emerged from the storm battered but alive. The princess realized that her skill alone could not have saved them. It was their combined effort, their trust in each other, and their willingness to act quickly and intelligently that had ensured survival. As they rested after the storm, the princess spoke softly. "I have learned more from you than I ever imagined. Your courage, intelligence, and resourcefulness rob the possible."
They surpass what I thought possible.
He smiled.
You give me too much credit. We just adapt.
"That's what humans do. But it is extraordinary," she insisted. "I I have never seen such skill, such courage, in anyone. Not in soldiers, not in technology. You have taught me something invaluable, that survival is not just about strength or training. It is about thinking, trusting, and acting. And you've taught me something too. You showed me that technology and knowledge, when combined with clever thinking, can accomplish things I never imagined.
We make a good team. Their journey continued, and with each passing day, the princess grew more confident in their partnership.
She no longer saw the human as a mere survivor. He was an equal, a teacher, and an ally. Together, they overcame obstacles that neither could have faced alone, and their respect for each other deepened. One evening, as the sun set over the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple, they finally reached the edge of the planet's dangerous regions. Beyond lay a safer path, a route that would allow the princess to take the ship into orbit and begin the journey back to the Empire. They paused for a moment, taking in the view. The human turned to her.
We made it, he said. The rest is up to you.
But remember, you're not alone. You have what you need to succeed. She nodded, feeling a mixture of relief, pride, and gratitude. I will not forget what you have taught me. Your skill, your courage, and your guidance, they will stay with me. Always. With careful coordination, they climbed aboard the ship. Coordination depends. The princess took the pilot's seat, while the human monitored the systems and secured the hull. Step by step, they powered the engines, tested the navigation, and prepared for liftoff. Every movement, every adjustment, required their combined skill and trust. Finally, the engines roared to life, steady and strong. The ship lifted from the ground, shaking off the last remnants of the storm and leaving the planet behind. The princess guided it into orbit, while the human checked the systems, ensuring that nothing had been damaged in the journey. As they floated above the planet, looking down at the surface that had tested them so severely, the princess spoke quietly. We survived. Together. I could not have done this alone. He smiled, tired, but satisfied. That's the point. Survival is better when you work together. The journey back to the Empire had begun. The princess knew that challenges awaited her there. Her mother's scrutiny, the expectations of the royal court, and the prejudice against humans. But she also knew that she had learned something no one in her empire could teach, that intelligence, courage, and adaptability were not limited by species or status. And as the ship sailed through the stars, carrying both of them toward home, the princess realized that the true value of their journey was not just survival, but the bond they had formed. They had faced impossible odds, overcome dangers that seemed insurmountable, and discovered a respect and trust that would guide them through whatever awaited in the Empire. For the first time, she felt ready to face her mother, the Queen, not as a naive princess, but as someone who had survived, learned, and grown. She had seen the strength of humanity firsthand, and she knew that when she returned, she would carry that knowledge with her. Together they would face whatever awaited them, proving that courage, intelligence, and partnership could bridge worlds, overcome prejudice, and change the course of history. The alien princess's ship glided through the darkness of space, the stars stretching out like diamonds across the void. Inside, the human worked beside her, monitoring the systems and keeping watch for hazards. The journey back to the Empire was long, but calm, the turbulence of the planet behind them. The princess sat in the cockpit, her thoughts focused on what awaited her. The palace, the queen, and the judgment of a society that had always seen humans as inferior. For weeks, they had survived together. They had crossed dangerous terrain, repaired the ship from near total destruction, and faced storms, predators, and natural hazards that would have killed anyone unprepared. In that time, the princess had come to respect the human not only for his courage and ingenuity, but for his patience, humility. She had learned that true strength was not measured by technology or rank, but by intelligence, adaptability, and heart. And now, the Empire awaited. The princess took a deep breath, steadying herself. The human glanced at her, sensing her tension.
Whatever happens, we've done everything we could. You know the truth.
That's what matters, she nodded.
Ooh, yes. The truth. That is all I can offer. When they approached the Empire's space station, sensors detected their arrival. Alarms rang, and a fleet of patrol ships moved to intercept. The princess activated the identification codes, signaling that she was returning from a mission. But the presence of a human aboard caused confusion. Communication channels crackled with questions and demands for identification. The princess responded calmly. I am the princess of the Empire, returning from a mission to the edge of the sector. The human accompanying me is an ally. He aided me in survival and ensured the completion of my task. The patrol ships hesitated. The Empire had strict rules. Humans were considered dangerous, weak, and undeserving of access to high-ranking officials. No human had ever entered the royal space before, but the princess's authority was clear, her voice firm, her credentials undeniable. Slowly, the ships allowed them to pass. The princess and the human docked at the space station, moving through the corridors that gleamed with polished metal and holographic displays. Guards stared, whispers spreading through the halls. A human at the side of the princess was unheard of, almost unimaginable. But she walked with confidence, her posture commanding, her presence undeniable. The human followed closely, silent but alert, aware of the eyes and curiosity that followed them. Finally, they arrived at the palace. The queen sat upon her throne, regal as ever, her expression calm but sharp. She had been informed of her daughter's return in the presence of a human, and she was not pleased. She studied them both, her eyes narrowing as she tried to measure the situation.
You returned, the queen said, her voice controlled but tinged with suspicion.
And you brought a human with you. Explain. The princess stepped forward, her posture straight, her voice steady. Mother, I survived because of him. He guided me, protected me, and ensured that I completed my mission. Without him, I would not have returned.
The queen's eyes widened slightly. A human saved you? She asked, her tone a mixture of disbelief and anger. Do you not understand the implications?
Humans are weak, unpredictable, and dangerous. Why would you place yourself in such a situation? I did not place myself alone, the princess replied firmly. He was my ally, and his skills, intelligence, and courage proved invaluable. He is not weak. He is strong in ways our empire has never acknowledged. The queen's expression softened, though her pride struggled against the truth. She had ruled the empire with discipline and hierarchy for decades, and the notion that a human could match, even surpass, her people's expectations was difficult to accept. Yet the princess spoke with clarity, conviction, and undeniable evidence. You survived against a world no one else could, the queen said quietly, more to herself than to anyone else. And you did so with a human's help? Yes, the princess replied. He adapted, he observed, he planned, and he acted with courage. He saved me, Mother! The room fell silent. The court officials whispered among themselves, their expressions ranging from astonishment to disbelief. To see a human standing beside a princess, unarmed, respected, and trusted, was unimaginable. The Empire's beliefs about humans were being challenged before their eyes. The queen's gaze returned to her daughter, searching for any sign of deceit, but found none. The princess's eyes were calm, steady, filled with the confidence of someone who had seen the truth firsthand. Slowly, the queen's expression shifted, her pride yielding to realization. You speak of courage, intelligence, and adaptability, the queen said, her voice softening further. All qualities we value in our people. And now you claim that a human possesses them. The princess nodded. Yes, Mother. And more. Humans do not rely on power alone. They use intelligence, observation, and resourcefulness to survive where others fail. They are capable, brave, and loyal. He has shown me that survival is not measured by rank or birth, but by action and wisdom. The Queen's eyes filled with tears she did not attempt to hide. Her daughter, her only daughter, had returned safely, alive, and had done so because of the skill of a being her empire had dismissed as weak. The realization was overwhelming. Years of prejudice, hierarchy, and expectation collided with the undeniable proof before her eyes. The human stood quietly, his posture respectful, aware of the weight of the moment. He had done nothing to impress or gain favor. He had acted with intelligence, courage, and care. And now, without words, the truth of his character spoke louder than any argument. The Queen rose slowly from her throne, her eyes still wet. She approached her daughter and the human, studying them both. She placed a hand on her daughter's shoulder, a gesture of both relief and pride. "You were right," she said softly. "He did save you, and he has earned my respect, though I did not believe it possible." The princess bowed slightly, her voice humble. "Thank you, Mother. I only wish for you to see the truth, as I have seen it." The Queen nodded, glancing at the human.
You have proven yourself.
Not with weapons, not with power, but with skill, courage, and intelligence. My empire has much to learn from you, perhaps more than we expected. The human nodded, understanding the magnitude of the moment. He had survived the planet's dangers, earned the trust of a princess, and now stood respected by a ruler of a powerful alien empire. Yet he remained humble, aware that actions spoke louder than words. The court remained silent, absorbing the lesson that humanity had shown them. They had long dismissed humans as weak, unpredictable, and irrelevant. Yet here was living proof that strength was not always obvious, that intelligence and courage could appear in unexpected forms. The Empire's beliefs had been challenged, and for the first time, some questioned the limitations they had placed on other species. Over the following days, the princess and the human shared the story of the mission with the Queen and her advisors. They described the planet's hazards, the predators, the storms, and the challenges they had faced together. The human demonstrated the tools he had improvised, the traps he had created, and the strategies he had used to survive. The Empire's officials listened in awe, unable to deny the evidence of his skill. The Queen herself was transformed. She saw not a weak human, but a being capable of courage, intelligence, and innovation. She realized that her people had underestimated other species, assuming that power and technology alone defined strength. The human had shown her a different kind of power, one born of thinking, adaptability, and resourcefulness. The princess watched her mother carefully, understanding the complexity of the emotions in her gaze. Relief, pride, amazement, and even a hint of regret mingled together. Her journey had not only proven the human's worth, but it also changed her mother's perspective, opening the door to a new understanding between species. Finally, the Queen addressed her daughter and the human. "You have both taught me something invaluable. Courage, intelligence, and adaptability are not bound by species. Humanity possesses qualities we have ignored, underestimated, or dismissed. You have proven that survival, skill, and trust are far more important than rank, birth, or technology alone. You have my respect, my gratitude, and my recognition." The princess smiled, relief washing over her. "Thank you, Mother. I only wished for you to see the truth." The human remained quiet, accepting the acknowledgement with humility. He had not sought recognition, only survival and cooperation. Yet the respect he received was meaningful, not for pride, but as validation of his courage, skill, and humanity. As days passed, the Empire began to take small steps to integrate this new understanding. Humans were no longer dismissed as weak. Their ingenuity, adaptability, and courage were acknowledged, and their survival skills became a subject of study. The princess worked to ensure that her people learned from the humans' example, teaching that intelligence and bravery could appear in forms they had never considered. The Queen, once rigid and unyielding, began to advocate for cooperation and understanding, recognizing that dismissing others based on assumptions was dangerous and short-sighted. She had seen proof that strength was not limited to her empire, and she could no longer ignore the value of other species. And for the princess, the journey had changed her as well. She had returned not only alive, but wiser, having learned lessons that no academy, no training, or no royal decree could teach. She had seen humanity's true potential, and she knew that her role was not just to survive, but to share that understanding, bridging worlds and building alliances based on respect, trust, and intelligence. As she stood beside the human, looking out over the empire that had once dismissed him, she felt a deep sense of hope. Together, they had survived, adapted, and proven that courage, skill, and partnership could overcome the impossible. And she knew that their journey was only the beginning, a journey that could change the course of history and redefine the meaning of strength across worlds. The Queen, tears still in her eyes, embraced her daughter. "You have returned safely, and you have taught me something I could never have imagined," she said. "I am proud of you, and I am grateful for him." The princess turned to the human, her expression filled with respect and admiration. "Thank you," she said simply, "for saving me and for teaching me to see the truth." He nodded, a small smile on his face. "We survived. That is what matters. And you will carry this lesson forward, not just for yourself, but for your people."
And so, in the heart of the empire, a new understanding began.
The human had earned respect not by conquest, but by courage, intelligence, and trust. The princess had grown wiser, seeing the value of partnership across species. And the Queen, once proud and unyielding, had learned that strength could come in unexpected forms. The empire would never be the same again,